Hey ticklers, welcome back to the Crafting Up New Things show where we take your great ideas and craft them up with our tiny ticklers. Today we are making the book from Hocus Pocus. Let's talk about materials. For most of this, I had these items laying around at home. I only had to make a few extra purchases. I bought a decorative book with an open inside. This one I picked up from Home Goods. Then I bought a piece of fabric. This is a quarter of a yard, and it was on a really big roll. When you go to buy your fabric, take your decorative book with you. That way you can really have the fabric cutter measure to see that you'll have enough fabric. I had the option of doing 1/8 of a yard, but we felt that having the full quarter would be a better choice. Full-size scissors, your glue gun, and plenty of extra glue sticks. Silver acrylic paint. These are half spheres. They're wooden craft pieces that I found at the craft store. This I'll be using for the eye. And this is something I use for decorating nail tips. It is a magnetic little stand with a gummy piece. I'm planning to put the eye sphere on top. That way it's easier to paint. Since this is more of a unique rare find, I will link this item down below in the description. Acrylic paints. These I bought off Amazon. They're small tubes. They come with a few brushes. This is something I already had that I had bought for a different project, so if you already have paints laying around at home, you only need a few of those darker colors. These are wooden nail care sticks. You can use this, a chopstick, or even a toothpick to help smear or press down on any of the hot glue edges. If you haven't already done so, go ahead and plug in your glue gun. We're going to start by working in 3 different sections. We'll start with the spine, a front cover, and a back cover. Each will be its own piece of fabric. We're starting with the spine on its own because that will allow you to be able to open and close the book without the cover trying to buckle or not having space to move. When you measure the fabric for the spine, you should be able to have maybe about 1 knuckle or a fingernail length of overhang that's going to cover the small amount of the back cover and the front cover. Once you figured out about how much of that fabric you'll need, go ahead and make your cuts. Next, place your book onto the fabric you just cut and remove any of that excess fabric that you won't be needing. Align your fabric where you'd like it to sit on your book, making sure to have that overhang, and you're going to place your hot glue directly onto your decorative book. You're basically making a line of glue down the front of the book closest to the spine as possible. firmly press the fabric onto that line of hot glue, then you can go back and make any touch-ups or areas that are lifting and add a little bit more glue and press firmly down. Flip your book over and do the same thing to the opposite side, only adding the glue onto the back cover closest to the spine, but not on the spine. Now that everything is glued and attached, you can go through and cut off any excess pieces of fabric that are hanging off the edges of your book. Lay your book on your fabric and make 2 small snips for the length and the width. Then you're going to cut until those 2 snips intersect. Next, you're going to lay that rectangular piece of fabric you just cut onto your full piece of fabric and just use it as a template to cut out another rectangle square that's about the same size. That way you have 2 squares of fabric, one for your front cover, one for the back cover. Once you've aligned your front cover onto that front panel of your book, you're going to start adding glue closest to the spine. And I'm adding this glue directly onto the brown fabric that I used for the spine, that overhang piece. Once you have a little bit of glue, let your fabric fall and then press firmly until it cools. You'll continue this process going in basically rows of hot glue. Continue making these lines of hot glue, pressing firmly, working all the way to the outer edge of your book. Flip your book over and we're going to complete that same process on the back cover. Just like before, I'm going to start my lines of glue on the edge closest to the spine. I don't know why. I feel like I need to track how many glue sticks I'm going through. So far, I have used 3 glue sticks, and we're just getting started. Your next step is to go through, just double check any edges of your fabric, make sure that everything is glued down and well attached. You can also cut off any overhanging fabric from the different sides of your book. Next, we're going to make the decorative snake that goes on the front of the book. You're going to need a strip of fabric that is about 1 inch wide and is still the full length of your book. Next, place your fabric dark side up on a work surface that you don't mind getting a little messy. I'm going to use some silver and gray acrylic paints to add some texture to this fabric strip. The acrylic paint that you're adding doesn't have to look pretty, it's just to make it look like a more rough metal texture onto the fabric. Next, we're going to use our glue gun to try and form the head and body of the snake. So we're going to work in sections here. I'm going to start with a big glob for the head, kind of oval shaped, and then start making a kind of a curved swirl snake-like line all the way up the strip of fabric. After the glue dries, you're going to go through and add another strip of glue on top of the cooled glue. Your goal is to thicken the snake and just add a little more height and like dimension to the snake. Once the glue cools, you can take your silver or gray paint and paint just the cooled glue. I would suggest using a lighter, maybe metallic paint for this part, just so the snake stands out against the textured black strip of fabric from before. Allow your paint some time to dry. Once it is ready to be handled, you can place it on top of your book closest to the spine and prepare to hot glue this section onto the front of the book. Next, we're going to cut some strips of fabric that are about the length of the book, so they can be the same length as the strip of fabric you used for the snake, but these will be a lot thinner. So I would say these ones are about 1/2 inch. Make sure to have your fabric flipped to the dark side of the fabric, so not the brown book side, and you are going to add those silver and grays onto these strips to give them some texture to make them look more metallic. Set them aside to dry once you're done, and I would suggest getting a new workspace going or placing a new sheet of paper down so that you don't get these silver paints on the back of your book. Now we're going to work on the eye. If you did purchase the magnetic nail tip stand, go ahead and take one of those half spheres and stick it onto the top of your stand. Using some pure white acrylic paint, you're going to paint the half sphere, just the top curved side, with that white paint. Once the white paint has dried, you'll go ahead and either choose like a dark green or a blue to paint the iris or color of the eye. Next, use a little bit of black paint to add the black dot at the center of the eyeball. Finally, use this time to make any touch-ups to the eyeball, and once you're satisfied with that, you're going to place it onto your book. Go ahead and decide where you want it. I placed mine mostly to the right, near the opening edge of the book and in the middle of the book, just like in the movie. Next, you're going to add a blob of glue to the back of the sphere and then press it down firmly onto the book to adhere. Next, we're going to cut the eyelids. For this part, I used 2 thin slivers of fabric, and I made them just big enough to cover close to the iris. So you'll notice for this top one, I wanted to cover a little bit of the colored part of the eyeball or the iris. This will make it look more like the one that's in the book. Once I set it where I wanted it, I held the fabric in place and cut off those extra edges. Next, add a little bit of hot glue onto the eyeball itself, onto the white, and then press your fabric down into the eye or the wood. For the bottom eyelid, this one is a little different from the top. You want a little bit of the white showing. So I'm not taking this fabric all the way up to the color. Leave a small smidge of white showing through. Like before, you're going to add some glue onto the white of the eye, close to the base, and then press your fabric onto it. I don't know about you ticklers, but I am getting pretty excited for how this is coming out. I think this is the one part of the book that really sets it apart and makes it clear what it is you're carrying around. Next, we're going to work on the stitching of the book. So on the front of the book, you'll notice there's a bunch of like stitches where it looks like there's skin with white threading through them. For the purpose of making this book beginner friendly, we're going to take those strips that we used from before, those metallic looking strips, and we're going to arrange them onto the book. I'm going to start by going around the eyeball. So what I'm going to do is place a thin line of glue, and then I'm going to pinch those painted strips together and press them down into the glue. So again, a thin strip, I'm working in small sections, pinch the fabric, and then while you're pinching it, press it down onto the glue. Continue this process with your remaining strips. I'm taking some going from the edge toward the snake binding, some from the bottom, but they can go in different directions. There's really no right or wrong way to do this. Like I had said before, the eyeball is the giveaway that this is the book from Hocus Pocus. Assuming you're going to have an amazing Sanderson sister costume, it's pretty obvious who you're going to be, especially if you'll be carrying around this amazing little accessory. Thanks for watching this video. If you like some of the content or have some other great ideas you'd like me to create, feel free to like, subscribe, smash that like button, and see you next time, ticklers!